If you ever get into a philosophical debate with someone, eventually you may hear them bring up the idea of Occam's razor. And back when I was an Oracle developer or a computer programmer, I had a coworker who was an atheist and I was a Christian. And so we would get into some just friendly debates about the existence of God, creation and evolution, and things like that. And the way I looked at it is you could look at just nature and the stars, the universe, the animals, the diversity of the creation, and look at it all and just be like, wow, there must be a God. Somebody must have designed this. And so he would bring up Occam's razor. And here's a couple of definitions from Wikipedia, but just entities should not be multiplied without necessity, or the simplest explanation is usually the right one. I tend to think of it as just don't unnecessarily complicate things. So the way he was seeing my argument was that I was looking at all of life and saying, well, God must have created it because it's so complex. And he was looking at it as, well, you're making it even more complex by bringing a God into it, because now we need to explain this God and where he came from. And it took me a while to understand where he was coming from, but it helps me to think about crop circles. So like if there's a circle in a field and we just jump to a conclusion and say, well, an alien must have done it. Well, then it just doesn't seem like good reasoning, right? And that's Occam's razor. We've made it unnecessarily complicated because now, where did this alien come from? And why don't they communicate with us? And where are they? And why are they making crop circles? All kinds of questions come up. And so I really appreciated that. But as I thought about it more, it's like, well, the more complicated the crop circle is, the more reasonable the answer of the alien becomes. So for example, if we could have the crop circle not just be complicated, but like move through the field where stalks of corn are going up and down and the whole pattern's moving, maybe even crossing roads and into different fields, and be like, wow, okay, now explanation of some prankster doing that seems a lot less likely. And maybe the aliens is kind of a reasonable thing to think about now. But what if there was a message? Like, what if it had words and it said, surrender, Earthlings, or maybe the message could even change. And wow, at some point, this crop circle can be so complicated that we could be like, well, actually, okay, aliens is probably the most likely thing. And I believe the same thing in creation. When I look at the beauty of a peacock's feathers, or the complexity of a butterfly's metamorphosis, or just the human body and things like that, it's like there must be a designer, there must be an artist, there must be an engineer behind all these things. And Romans 1:18 says the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. And this verse is saying just basically, hey, God has made it plain to us that he's there, and to some extent, what he's like. And I would go as far as to say, if you look at all of creation and you don't think a God created all that, honestly, I wouldn't follow God, because God is claiming to have made this clear to us. And I just think we just instinctively can look around and be like, okay, this is not all just part of nature. Somebody is the designer, the engineer, the creator of these things. And I would encourage you not just to think about these things philosophically, but even practically. Like, what do you do with that now? There's a God who created you. I would encourage you to pursue him, to learn about him, to find out about him, figure out who he is. And I believe that the God of the Bible is the real God, and he loves you, and he wants a relationship with you, and he is seeking you out. And I want to encourage you to respond to him, to put your faith in him and in Jesus, who he sent to pay for your sins. So I encourage you on that journey of seeking him out, and I pray and hope that you'll find truth that leads to life.